Thank you. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, again, and thank you for being here today. I have some questions. It's very much a contradictory set of questions. I've got questions on fraud and questions on how to make more people eligible. So this whole NDIS, NDIA seems to be full of contradictions from the moment it started back in 2010 or whatever it was. Could I ask questions about the Fraud Fusion Taskforce first, please?
Of course.
I had some NDIS data. I'm not sure exactly where it's coming from, but it's from within the NDIS. It says that for the June 2024 quarter, there were over 7,000 tip-offs, but only 16 prosecutions for fraud. Why has the task force achieved only 16 prosecutions in a quarter despite 7,000 tip-offs? Can you explain the gap? And I'm not pretending it's easy.
Thank you for the question, Senator. John Dardo, Deputy CEO, NDIA. The tip-offs that we receive may be treated through a range of mechanisms. So those mechanisms might be that we look at them and we're able to engage with a provider or participant and deal with it through education. The tip-off may require us to implement some sort of prepayment review where we nudge a person to give us some evidence before we pay a payment. It may be that we do a post-payment review, we do a historic review. It may be that we do a more serious administrative compliance intervention. It may be that we implement manual payment reviews where we stop payments until we receive evidence for each claim. And in the most extreme cases, we may revert to a criminal investigation and or a prosecution. So it's really important to note that there's a spectrum of treatments depending on the severity of the tip-off and the efficacy of the tip-off. In some cases, we look at the tip-off and it's actually a misunderstanding and there's no substance underneath it that requires an intervention.
The tip-off itself is wrong.
The tip-off might be wrong, it might be misunderstanding, it might be, in some cases, it's malicious, somebody having a go at someone else. So it's really important that while we do measure tip-offs, and we have put an enormous program in to improve the way we capture, understand and process tip-offs, the volume of tip-offs of themselves do not indicate the requirement for a prosecution. And just while I am talking about tip-offs, once upon a time tip-offs used to be captured effectively on a spreadsheet. We have put in a range of system improvements to make those tip-offs more able to be captured in a codified way. So whether it's through the call centre or through our online systems, they're able to be captured in a way where we can code and then analyse the content of the tip-offs. The beauty of that is that as the volumes have increased, and they are increasing, they continue to increase, as the volumes increase, we're more able to run analytics over the top of them and understand whether the tip-off relates to previous tip-offs or previous treatments or previous risks, and then cluster them up or group them with associated intelligence or associated treatments. So those systems continue to improve by the week. But I just don't want you to assume that every tip-off is going to be a prosecution. That would never be the case.
Senator Roberts, if I may, Catherine Myers, Deputy Commissioner from the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission, as members of the Fraud Fusion Taskforce who work very closely with the NDIA. Since November 2022, we have executed over 306 compliance outcomes, including 179 banning orders, 38 revocations of registration and 89 other regulatory outcomes. So in addition to the prosecutions undertaken, there have been a number of regulatory actions taken.
Restrictions imposed, bans, etc. Okay. All right.
And Louise Glanville, the Commissioner for the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission. I think the really important piece of this is that it's a very collaborative arrangement between the NDIA and the Commission, as well as other enforcement agencies. And the sort of development and growth of that, I think, has been particularly positive for being able to identify, better analyse, as Mr Data was saying, and understand what are the best actions that can be taken to address whatever the nefarious or other action is that has occurred. So I think that's a really important part of this process as well.
So it is a big issue to you, NDIS and NDIA.
To the Commission and the agency, yes.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of restrictions, but I'll go to total prosecutions and convictions for NDIS fraud. How many since the task force was established?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we step back. It's a metric that has a significant lag effect, and what I mean by that is that while you may start some
investigation,
you may start something. There may be interventions that are lower level interventions, or they may rapidly escalate. Before search warrants are executed. It could be 30. In some cases, it's very, very fast. It could be, weeks or a month. In some cases, it takes longer. But even after search warrants are executed, sometimes there's a charge on the day. Sometimes there's a court attendance notice. Sometimes it takes another 6 to 12 months to get to a charge, and then to get in front of the courts. In some cases, we're seeing cases not getting in front of the courts for several years. So, can I just flag prosecutions is it's not a number that's a great indicator of the level of activity that is occurring. And it's certainly not a number that reflects just the enormous collaborative effort that's occurring across the agencies. I think, our colleagues at the Commission have been phenomenal in partnering up with us, as have a number of other agencies, Services Australia, Tax Office and so on. So sometimes the interventions are actually better administered by other agencies in terms of interventions, or they're administered in partnership with other agencies. If you want something that's a more indicative number of activity at that sharp end, like the activity that you're trying to get to, at the very tip of the iceberg, we're talking just in the first 4 calendar months of this year, we did 35 warrants. That's more than were done in a whole 4 years before the task force was established, and that was just in the first 4 months. So if you're looking for an indicator of sharp activity, you can see we're talking 12-fold increase in activity in a task force. And can I just say that doesn't even scratch the surface of the things that happen underneath investigations, the interventions that occur.
And it's pretty daunting. I don't know if it was you, I think it may have been you who a year or so ago told us that you were overwhelmed and the court system would not handle it.
Look, it's really important to note, we've never said, and I'm on record, in this House on a number of occasions of saying debts, prosecutions, raids, they are the wrong metrics for a successful system. What we really are trying to build through all our big investments is how you prevent those bad things from happening. And so if you look at the big system investments that we're making, are trying to figure out how you make it easy for people to get it right, really hard to get it wrong. That means that all the people that are trying to do the right thing, which is the majority, are having a better experience. It's more streamlined. It's easier for them to get paid the right amount. They're less likely to get themselves into a misunderstanding. They're less likely to be abused by a non-compliant provider. So that prevention up front is overwhelmingly our mission. Everything we're building in the Crackdown on Fraud program is about building prevention up front so that you can safeguard participants and get sustainability. So whether it be improving the identity systems for the people that log in, which we've delivered, whether it be improving the identity systems for the providers, which we've now delivered, whether it be improving the evidence requirements for claiming so we're more confident people are getting right, which we've partially delivered and continue to improve, building a data analytics system that allows all that data to be pulled together so we can identify risks and stop at prepayment where we can, whether it's working with our partners to have those risk detections so that we can identify providers that are problematic and exit them from the system at the earliest opportunity. All those things that prevent bad things happening, that has to be the focus. You'll never get rid of the need to raise debt or prosecute. Like, that will always be something in the arsenal. We will need to be good at it, but it should be the last resort. You would hope that, you know, whoever replaces me in 2 or 3 or 4 years' time is sitting here saying, actually, we only had to do 5 prosecutions because the systems work so well we didn't have to prosecute.
What you're saying makes perfect sense. Nonetheless, some people will bypass just about everything.
Yep.
Deliberately. Have there been any custodial sentences handed out?
There have been, absolutely. And not only have there been custodial sentences, there have also been successful confiscations of assets. So there are people that have gone to jail and are serving custodial time. There are people where we've grabbed, you know, $4 or $5 million worth of assets from them. We have cases in progress right now where we've worked with partners, whether it be state or federal, to put seizure orders on, in one case, 33 houses and 3 cars. A provider. Let me emphasise that was a provider, right? So we absolutely, custodial is in the tool set, but remember, custodial's got to be an outcome from the courts. We don't get...
Which can take months and months.
It can take years, and the courts, you know, we can't, at the end of the day, the court makes the decision about custodial. We put our best case in the brief, the CDPP puts the best case in front of the courts, and the courts make the decision.
I'll say it again on the record. What you're saying makes perfect sense to me. So I commend you for that. I don't know whether you're doing a good job or not, but it sounds like the right approach to me. So,
Just checking how much more time you need, Senator Roberts.
probably 5 minutes, please, Chair.
Okay, no problem.
Well, my subsequent questions are not really necessary because of the comprehensiveness of your answer.
You put them on notice then, is that what it means? It's a no.
Apparently you stated that a survey showed 90% of a group of plan managers exhibited signs of fraud.
Absolutely.
How many of those cases have been referred for criminal prosecution?
So again, let me, and that was a discussion that I'm pretty sure we had in a previous Senate estimates. So it was a particular subset of plan managers. So it wasn't every plan manager. So it was the plan managers that had between 0 and 100 clients. And I know that sounds weird, but you know, you can have 0 clients because you had clients and you're not claiming for them right now. But plan managers that have between 0 and 100 clients, there were roughly 1,000 in that sample, and about 899, to be exact, at that time when we did the analysis, had indicators that we would think are associated with potential fraudulent behaviour. So again, there's a range of interventions that we've applied there. In some cases, we have put prepayment reviews on them where they can't be paid unless they provide evidence for their claims. And if those prepayment reviews, they turn up and they provide evidence that's problematic, that, you know, we look at it and we go, that looks like you're falsifying your invoices, or you're claiming for things that are not remotely connected to the scheme, or you're claiming for participants that are not getting service, then we will work with the Commission to remove them from the scheme. So that's an intervention that may or may not go to a prosecution. The other intervention that we've applied is that we've asked them for requests for information for historic claiming, and we've gone back and looked at their historic claiming. We've just done another sample of 47 where the majority of those had problematic claimings, and so we've referred them either to the Commission for banning, or we have removed their ability to claim from us. You know, we're working through those. In some cases, we executed search warrants with our partner agencies. In one case, we, the Commission, the Tax Office, and some other regulators targeted the plan manager. That, you know, so access through a search warrant. You know, tax debt raised, banning orders from a number of regulators, the Commission and other regulators, to remove them from multiple schemes. And that case, you know, may proceed to prosecution, and we'll work our way through it. And in that case, debts were also raised from multiple agencies. So there's a spectrum of treatments. We are not going to prosecute every single plan manager that we said had fraud indicators, and there may be some where we look at them and we go, the fraud indicators are there, but they didn't lead to anything.
Okay, final question. How will you know you're being effective? And how will we know you're being effective? How will we know that when fraud is out of the NDIA?
Yeah. Fraud will never be completely out of the NDIA, just like it's never out of any scheme. There will always be a level of it that just exists, and you have to continue to innovate because it's an arms race to stay ahead.
Stories are rife.
They are. So it's continuing that work for prevention. That has to be the overwhelming focus.
How will we know if Mr. Dardo's done a good job? I mean, it sounds good, and I'm not being patronising. I sincerely mean that. It sounds good. What you're saying makes perfect sense. You're managing the process, which is what very few managers understand.
Look,
so how will we know that the process has good outcomes?
The first time I came here representing this agency, I sat in this room and we rattled off the half a dozen things that needed to be built out as capabilities. We talked about, the vulnerabilities in the scheme, identity, the way claiming was working, the way providers were interacting. We've rattled those things off. And when we sat down and imagined the program of work that would address those things, which government funded, that program of work clearly articulated those layers of capability that needed to be built and delivered. And you can't, you build the foundations and then you've got to keep building. But we then laid that out as a program of work, called the Crackdown on Fraud program of work, the systems uplift. That systems uplift was funded by government. In February 2024 it commenced, and we have delivered every single milestone in that program of work between February 2024 and now, on time, under budget, or let me rephrase that slightly, within the timeframes that we promised we would build it, because we started 2 months later than we said we would, so a couple of things have finished a couple of months later than we said we would, but within the timeframe we said we would build it. And so one indicator for you that we're doing a proper job is that we are building those layers of defence on time, and as they go into production, we can actually see that we're stopping things happening that used to happen or that used to be completely invisible. So we are now more confident that some of those things that we promised should be there are there. The journey's not finished, we've got a long way to go, but it's how we deliver on those promised uplifts so that the system is less likely to be open to abuse by those that want to abuse it.
And then would you include in that an audit of the systems to make sure the systems are working as you said?
I can assure you we've got eyes, not just our eyes, everyone else's eyes on it. The ANAO, the ANAO comes and look at us and make sure that we're actually building what we said we were going to build, and we're building on time. The Department of Finance Gateway Reviews comes and looks at us and says, did you promise this? Did you build it? Has it been delivered on time? So there is an enormous amount of independent assurance that's coming and looking at what we promised for the money that we got and whether we've built it to the standard that we said we would. And in addition to that, we've got independent assurers that work on the program with us that write reports for government about whether we've delivered what we said we would build on time, on budget. So the scrutiny is impeccable.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator Roberts.